The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Hello everyone, welcome into Students of the Game. My name is Alex Baumann, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Nathan Glidewell. Hopping into college football this past weekend, Alabama completed their revenge tour against LSU after beating Tennessee a couple weeks ago. Auburn actually got a win, a back-to-back win in the SEC, a road win for the first time since 2021. You had Missouri and Georgia play in Athens. Georgia get the best of that matchup, and a whole lot of other games we're going to cover as we go through the show. But starting off, we're going to start off with the Alabama Crimson Tide hosting number 14 LSU. Bama ended up winning that game 42-28, and after that game, Bama did not move at all in the rankings AP-wise. They're still number 8. Starting off with the Bama offense, Jalen Milroe, I think, had the best game of his Crimson Tide career, 15-23 passing, 219 passing yards. Didn't have any passing touchdowns or any interceptions. But the story of the game for Milroe was his 20 carries for 155 yards and the 4 rushing touchdowns, which is actually an Alabama single game record for a quarterback. So while Milroe wasn't successful finding end zone passing, he was finding a lot of success on the ground rushing that football. There was multiple third downs where it was third and long, and Milroe just got it because he used his legs. And that's something we've been asking for as fans all year long, is for Milroe to use his legs. And then also Tommy Rees, the offensive coordinator, to implement some running plays into this offense. And we saw that. We saw them have their own take on the tush push in the red zone. There was also a QB design run that scored a touchdown as well. Miller just created the offense when he needed to. He didn't force the ball into places they didn't need to go. And I think, like I said, it's the best game of his Crimson Tide career thus far. He got help in their rushing game as well with running back Chase McClellan with 63 rushing yards and a touchdown. Then he had Rodo Williams at 56 rushing yards and a touchdown as well. Receivers with Milroe really finding end zone, only rushing the ball. We're kind of quiet in that aspect, receiving-wise. Isaiah Bond led the way with 60 receiving yards. Jermaine Burton added 29, and then Kendrick Law with 25. The offense, I think, was much improved. It continues to improve week after week. And the third down efficiency this week, 11 of 14. And I know against LSU's defense, but LSU is a great football team. You can't take away that from them. But the offense, like I said, continues to improve. The defense for Alabama continues to be the mainstay for this team, the identity form, in my opinion. Only got 1 sack, 1 TFL, but they're continually in that pocket in that second half, forcing Jaden Daniels to make bad decisions with the football. They had an interception by Terran Arnold that was caused by a pass deflection from Dallas Turner, who apparently now is being characterized as some dirty player because of that hit on Jaden Daniels. Josh Pate had some stuff about that. There's multiple people on Twitter that are close to Alabama, and then also people that are just in the national media that have really come to Dallas Turner's defense here. How it really isn't a dirty play. The player just got hurt, and at the end of the day, that's part of football. He could have done a little bit better of not driving him into the ground as hard, but he's making a football play. It wasn't anything like he's trying to hurt Jane Daniels there. So I don't like this characterization of Dallas Turner being this dirty player, because he's definitely not. He's just really passionate about the game, and he showed it throughout this game and through his entire career. One note here is kicker Will Riker did go 0 for 2 on field goals. Kind of disappointing there for Will after he had been hyped up the entire year, not missing a field goal since the Tennessee game last year. And he goes 0 for 2. Listening to the radio this morning, apparently there were some issues with the grass being too long. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But that was really the only issue for Alabama this entire game, was their kicker Will Riker going 0 for 2. And when that's the only really big issue, I mean, that's okay. I think Nick Saban will be okay with that. Nathan, what did you see from Alabama from this game, and especially Jalen Milroe and his growth as a quarterback?
This is like one of the games we were expecting Jalen Milroe to have all year long. We felt like there was always potential to have it. Seeing him in practice, seeing how he's improved game to game to game. You even go back to the Texas game, you always felt like there was so much more he could do as a quarterback. And it wasn't there yet. It was just one of those things where he needed to keep working at it. And finally this week against a very, very talented and special LSU team, he has a breakout game. And it is very important for him, very important for this Alabama team, because it got them the win, essentially. But for him to be able to use his legs it's just another dimension to the offense. What Tommy Rees has been able to do. I know a lot of fans early on, especially me, have really questioned his ability to play call in certain areas. And now that he's incorporated Jalen Milroe actually using his legs, that's being called more. It's definitely helped out the offense a lot. Not just from Jalen Milroe running the ball, but having a balance, opening up more of the pass plays. In this game, it just came down to Jalen Milroe taking advantage of what the LSU defense gave him. LSU played a lot of zone, tried to force interceptions from him, trying to make him make bad decisions. He didn't. No turnovers in this game, which I really think that's the difference maker. You talk about a game where essentially it was a shootout going into the fourth quarter, and then you come right back out. Jaden Daniels has that tip ball interception to Terrion Arnold, and honestly, that's a big momentum shift in the game. You could say that if that doesn't happen, that it's still a shootout. But overall, third down efficiency, like you said, Alex, was pretty much perfect. Not much more you ask for. There's only one drive we punted, I believe. That's insane. That's insane progress in the start of the season. Defense in this game. Oh man, don't even bring that up. We are so far past that now. But defense in this game, I know it wasn't super impressive. It's hard. That's the number one offense in the country right there, and they were held to 28 points. I think that you got to give the defense some credit there. I know 28 seems like a lot. It's a lot more than Alabama's used to giving up this season. But against the number one offense and Jaden Daniels like that, I think that's a special thing to do. Dallas Turner, his situation for the number of people who attack him for trying to make a football play is absurd. When you step out on the field, you only had time to make split-second decisions. And he's playing with a certain tenacity that is trying to get his team to win. And that situation might look dirty, but Dallas Turner is not a dirty player. He just plays with a lot of aggression and a lot of passion. And in that sense, I really feel bad for Jaden Daniels because he's a competitor too. And I wanted to see him finish out the game because of the game he was having. But unfortunately, he had to leave due to concussion protocol. And Dallas Turner, that was roughing the passer. But again, he's playing with passion. There's nothing ruthless about it. People want to try to bring up past instances with Quinn Ewers and stuff like that. I think it's just a part of the game. I mean, Dallas Turner plays hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of snaps. It's bound to happen. It's bound to happen to anyone in the country. But to label someone like that a dirty player is besides the point. And for Will Reichard, missing 2 field goals. Man, I was trying to think back to the last time he missed back-to-back field goals. I mean, that's incredible.
He ever has.
I don't know because he's been pretty automatic, but he did reach that 500th point mark, and now he leads collegiate kickers in points scored, I believe. But he's moving up the boards, and I think he's now fourth or third all time in points. So if he can keep making field goals, I think he has a chance to actually take that number 1 spot, which would be pretty special. But overall, this game, very, very entertaining to watch. Alabama gets a great win against a very talented LSU team, and they keep improving.
Yeah, I mean, look at the defense. You brought that up, Nathan, a little bit. Is in the second half of games, this defense has been lights out. LSU, they only allowed 7 points. Tennessee, nothing. A&M, 3, and Ole Miss, 3. So they might give up these 20 points in the first half, but when they go into that halftime in that locker room and they make all these adjustments and they come out, they do not let you score many points, if any, if you're Tennessee. So I think Kevin Steele deserves a lot of credit there. Him, Nick Saban, Tavares Robinson, who's an assistant there, deserve a lot of credit for what they've done with this defense and how they adjust in the second half. And also Tommy Rees for what he does with that offense, because earlier in the year, I mean, people were calling for Tommy Rees's head, and now people are praising him for his play calling and his creativity. And he's getting comfortable with these players. I think that was a big thing, is getting comfortable with the players on the roster. It's going to take a few games, and he's figuring out what works best for his quarterback and all the other skill position players on this team. And I think the coaching staff has done a great job the entire season. But on the flip side of this, LSU, They have 3 losses on the season: Florida State, Ole Miss, and Alabama now. They come into the season, everybody's like, LSU is a title contender here. If they beat Florida State, and, pretty much the rest of their schedule, they can win out. They might still be in the race to do it. And now they're sitting at, what is that, 6-3, Nathan?
Yeah, 6
Am I right
3.
there?
Mm-hmm.
And they have the best offense in the country. Their defense, I mean, that's a whole other story. It's one of the worst in the country. Where does Brian Kelly go from here? Does he get rid of the defensive coordinator? What does LSU do from here? Because, like I said, they have the best offense in the country. The stats show it. They have the best quarterback in the country, stats wise, and they can't win these big time games. What does Brian Kelly do from here, Nathan?
Yeah, at this point in time, you're gonna have to make some adjustments on defense, whether that be your staff, moving some people around, maybe find some people outside the program to come in and take over the defensive coordinator position. Because frankly, with the amount of talent this team has, it's unacceptable for them to be 6-3 at this point in the season, when really all your aspirations were out there in front of you to start the season. I believe that this team, if it just found a look at defense, it could have been the national championship contender, just simply based on the fact that they had one of the best quarterbacks in the country, if not the best. That's an argument for another day. But another great receiver in Malik Neighbors. I mean, they were just loaded with talent. And I know with their defense, they had a lot of transfers come in and had to fill holes. They've had injuries, but they have talented guys like Harold Perkins and Major Burns in the defense too. So it's not like there's a lack of talent on the defense. It's just that it was used improperly. And what it's going to come down to, Brian Kelly's going to have to make a decision, and he's going to have to bring someone in to really get this defense new life, because they just look dead out there, and it looks like they're just going through the motions every game. You could see late in the second half that once Alabama's offense is out there and LSU's defense is out there, there was no sense of urgency for LSU. They kind of didn't care what was going on.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the Auburn-Vanderbilt game. Auburn won that game 31-15. As I mentioned when we started the video, snapped an 8-game SEC road losing streak, and that last one being Arkansas 2021. So you snap that streak, you get your back-to-back win in the SEC under Hugh Freeze. Auburn's offense, I don't think it was great. I know they scored 31 points, but they were heavily reliant on these big chunk plays. The two big runs from Jarquez Hunter early in the game, the 67-yarder and the 56-yarder. Then you had the Rivaldo Ferreira, their touchdown reception from 56 or 53 yards. They did have that one short touchdown from Jeremiah Cobb, but outside of that, they really did rely on these big chunk plays. And when you play teams like Alabama, you're not going to have that opportunity to get those big chunk plays, at least 4 of them, or I guess 3 of them that scored touchdowns. So I think the offense, in my opinion, took a little bit of a step back this week, especially looking at the receivers. There was tons of drop passes this game from receivers. I think Peyton Thorne, I think he's improving a little bit. He put balls in good places for the receivers to catch it, but they just dropped it. There was one play in particular where he threw an absolute dot to Camden Brown up the seam, and Brown mistimed his jump and didn't catch the football. These receivers and Peyton Thorne don't seem to be on the same page, which is a little bit concerning considering we're so late into the season. I don't know what they do from here. But Peyton Thorne, like I said, continues to improve. He did have one pick six that was pretty ugly, and it could have been picked off again. But I think the offense continues to show a little bit of life. But in my opinion, like I said, took a little bit of a step back this game with their reliance on big chunk plays. Look at the defense. I think the defense played very well. 5 sacks, 9 TFLs, 7 passes defended, and an interception by Nehemiah Pritchett. I think the star of the game was DJ James, who had to guard Will Shepard, who's pretty much the entire Vanderbilt offense. He did an amazing job on him. There was multiple times where they kept trying to throw these one-on-one balls to Will Shepard, and DJ James had nothing for him. Continued to play great football. Eugene Asante, the linebacker there, great performance from him. 1 sack, 1 TFL. But the entire defensive line for Auburn, I think, showed some promise in this game. I know it's Vanderbilt, but they really get after the quarterback. Marcus Harris at defensive tackle played a great game. Zacchaeus Walker played a great game. He had a sack and 2 TFLs. So once again, the Auburn defense plays great football. Like Alabama is the highlight of their team, what they hang their hat on. And if the offense can figure something out here, not be so reliant on these big chunk plays in these coming weeks when they play Arkansas, New Mexico State, and, form some sort of offense where they can, drive down the field at a good pace, then I think Auburn will be in good shape to play Alabama. Nathan, what are your thoughts on Auburn after they beat Vanderbilt this week?
Yeah, I would agree. They probably took a little bit of a setback on offense. It starts with Peyton Thorne and his ability to make plays. In this game, I felt like he forced some balls in. He did have the one pick six, and then another one that should have been had but didn't count. Peyton Thorne as a player, I think he keeps improving week to week. It's just sometimes he has trouble reading the field. Honestly, you could say he's in more of a Jalen Monroe standpoint early on in the season. To get comparing the two, just of what type of offense Auburn's been running, very run heavy. Relying on guys like Jarquez Hunter to make those big chunk plays. Because they don't have a lot of reliance on their quarterback. I know that he did end up passing the ball 27 times, but for the most part, it felt like whenever there was a big moment in the game, they said, hey, we're going to come and we're going to run the ball. And that's just been Auburn's identity all year long. And I don't know if it's from mistrust in Peyton Thorne and his ability to make plays, or the fact that they are just in love with the running game. You can honestly flip a coin at this point in the season. But Peyton Thorne, after last game, I wanted him to be a little bit more consistent. He's kind of there, but kind of not. So it's I might need another week to see how this Auburn offense does. But their defense has convinced me all year long that they're a great defense. They get after the quarterback. They force turnovers. There are so many playmakers on the defense. You can't ask much more of them. Eugene Asante has just been that guy for that defense. Nehemiah Pritchett is all over the field. DJ James, like you said, very, very good cornerback. And they take care of business. They get the ball back to their offense 9 times out of 10, it feels like, and when they're playing teams like this. So I think there are things to build off for this Auburn team. But the lack of offense this season has really just put their season in the dirt. I think if you look at it and they find their offense a little bit early, you talk about coming out of the bye week after the Georgia game, if they find offense there, you're talking about games that go in different directions. I mean, that Ole Miss game was very winnable if you execute a little bit better in offense. So I think there's a lot of promise for this Auburn team, but I'm still not like 100% convinced of their offense. And if their offense is not there, I don't think they have a lot of a chance against a team like Alabama. And really, I think Arkansas is a winnable game, although Arkansas, we'll talk about later, is coming off a pretty big win. And then New Mexico State should be a given, but crazier things have happened. But that last weekend of the season, I know everyone has it circled. It's going to be a very tough game. And I really hope that Auburn figures out their offense by that time, because I want to see a good game. But right now it's all up in the air.
Yeah, I don't want to see a Sean White 2.0 Iron Bowl again. That was pretty hard to watch. Even as a Bama fan, that was very hard to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So other two games in the state of Alabama, UAB taking on FAU. UAB ended up winning that game 45-42 on a walk-off field goal. Huge win for that team. Quarterback Jacob Zeno played amazing football, 29-35, 484 passing yards, 5 touchdowns. The dude's been lights out all season when he does play. This is that defense for UAB, who's starting a lot of freshmen, has been struggling as of late. But like I said, starting freshmen, the defense is going to take a little bit to learn, and this is the first year under Trent Dilfer. So I think as these freshmen grow and get experience, this team will be just fine under Trent Dilfer. Jacksonville State did fall short against South Carolina, 38-28. Looks like the second there, the Jacksonville State might pull off an upset. Yeah,
I was convinced. I am so convinced of this Jacksonville State team. They are very competitive. Against a team like South Carolina, I know South Carolina's had a down year, but they have a lot of talent. But the way that Jacksonville State really battled in this game, I really thought they were going to win it.
Yeah, I think Rich Ross got that program going in the right direction, kind of like Trent Dilfer does. So good thing down there in Jacksonville State. All right, another game, battle of the SEC East teams. Number 2, Georgia, hosting number 12, Missouri. Georgia ended up winning that game 30-21. I think the big reason Georgia ended up sneaking out of that game with a win was Brady Cook's 2 interceptions to end the game. And while you don't One player doesn't cost your team the entire game. You win and lose as a team. Those interceptions were very costly. One to Nazir Stackhouse and the other one to Javon Bullard. So he had a big main interception from Stackhouse, which was pretty fun to watch him rumble. You look at Georgia's offense. I don't think it was great. It was good enough to win. Carson Beck, 21 to 32, 254 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, which I think was a big thing for Georgia, is not turning the ball over. Kind of like in the Alabama LSU game where LSU turned the ball over that one time and ended up kind of costing them there. Mizzou turns the ball over twice and it kind of ended up costing them here. Look at Georgia's running game. Dejon Edwards, 77 rushing yards, and then Kendall Milton added 44 and a touchdown. Receiving wise, Ladd McConkey, 95 receiving yards. Then you had Oscar Dope and Dominic Lovett score touchdowns each. And the defense for Georgia played I think they played pretty well when they needed to get those turnovers. They got them at the end of the game. Like I mentioned, 2 interceptions. They did have 3 sacks and 4 TFLs. Like I said, did a pretty good job. Flip over to Missouri, Brady Cook at quarterback. A little bit of a lackluster performance. Wanted to see it perform better, especially in a big-time game. 14 to 30, 212 yards, a touchdown. And as I mentioned, the 2 costly interceptions and had 39 rushing yards. Would have liked to see Missouri get him out of the pocket a little bit more, get him some more rushing opportunities. Not to the extent Jalen Milroe did or anything, but I think when you play somewhere like Georgia, you got to give your quarterback some opportunities to move the pocket, get outside the pocket, and make some plays. Running back Cody Schrader, 112 rushing yards and a touchdown. Cody Schrader is an underrated running back in the country right now. If you watch him run, he's an angry runner. He fights for his extra yards, and like I said, I think he's a really underrated running back in the country. Receiving-wise, Theo Weiss Jr. led the way with 9 receiving yards, and Luther Burden III had 53 receiving yards and a touchdown. Bit of a quiet game for Burden coming into it. You kind of expected him to have a bit of a explosive performance against Georgia, maybe vault his draft stock next season to something bigger. But unfortunately, he was kind of held in check by that Georgia secondary. So hats off to Georgia once again for their defense. And you look at Missouri's defense. I think they played pretty good. Looking at Missouri, the first thing you think of isn't defense, but they played it pretty good. Held Carson Beck in check to the most part. 3 sacks, 5 TFLs. And linebacker Teron Hopper, dude was all over the place. 10 tackles, 7 solo, had a sack and a TFL. Wherever the football was, it felt like Hopper was right there. Dude's a stud. I think Missouri has a good one there. And he's going to have some more confidence in Eli Drinkowitz, and this program will continue to build and build and build. And I think Missouri has a bright future ahead of them, especially in back-to-back years of being competitive with Georgia in these circumstances. Nathan, what did you see in this game that really surprised you from Georgia? And then what does Missouri have that really shows some promise there for the future?
Yeah, I looked at what Georgia did coming out of the offensive end, because that's been the real question mark ever since Brock Bowers has gotten out. And I think against this Missouri defense, it's not a huge test, but it's a new test. And it was a question all week long how Missouri would compete against Georgia. Georgia comes out and they put Carson Beck in a comfortable situation, and they allow him to make plays and not get out of his comfort zone and move the ball down the field and score when they needed it to. Another heavy reliance on the running game. Dejon Edwards, 16 carries, 77 yards. He takes care of business there. Kendall Milton, 9 carries, 44 yards and a touchdown. Both those guys really have been relied on heavily with the absence of a guy in Brock Bowers. And then finding new receiving targets. Dominic Lovett, he seems to be favored now. Oscar Delp found his way to the end zone. And then getting guys like Ladd McConkey and Robert Thomas involved has been huge for the Georgia offense. Carson Beck, he continues to play pretty good. And it's one of the things that people haven't really talked about this season. Dude stepped in at the beginning of the year. He didn't look great. A lot of people were calling for someone else to come in and play quarterback. And they kept Carson Beck in there, let him find his rhythm. And now he's quietly having a decent season. And I think that's been huge for the Georgia offense ever since losing Stetson Bennett. So going forward, I'm not really worried about Georgia without Brock Bowers. They have found a way to get it done 2 weeks now. They had 2 more really big tests in front of them. Honestly, 3 if you count Georgia Tech. So I don't think the question is the offense anymore. The question is really, are they going to make a mistake? Because by far, I think the only team that can beat Georgia right now, based off the teams left on their schedule, is Georgia. And it comes down to defense, whether they get stops on defense or they let guys or these playmakers really beat them. Brady Cook wasn't able to do in this game. He turned the ball over twice in key scenarios, which really cost Missouri the game. You give back Missouri those 2 possessions, you could be talking about the Missouri win right now. It was that close of a game. And you got to just give Georgia credit for their defense finding a way to really seal the game and win it for them. And ultimately, I don't think that Georgia's defense has been asked anywhere close to that level of task to y'all got to come out and you got to get us to stop and seal the win. But they did it here. They passed another test. They'll move on. They'll play Ole Miss this coming weekend. This is going to be a huge game. I know the game's in Athens again. But you got to respect the way that Lane Kiffin coaches. That Ole Miss offense is crazy. Their defense is slowly coming along now with Pete Golding at the helm. But it's going to be an amazing battle to see. And then after that, they got Tennessee and then Georgia Tech, who really I don't think Georgia Tech's a huge challenge, but they play better ball this season, and they've gotten some upsets when it comes down to it. So Georgia, I don't know if they're going to run the table the rest of the way. They still got 2 really good games to run them. But I can tell you, if they take a week at a time, I think they'll have no problem.
What about Missouri? How do they move on from this loss here? Because they only have 2 losses on the season, so it's not over yet. But they still have a lot of tests, kind of like Georgia.
They just gotta keep moving on, and ultimately, this has been a very, very good season for Missouri. You talk about Missouri fans and what their expectations were coming into the season. You told them that they only had 2 losses and they were competitive against a team like Georgia. And up until November 5th or 4th, they were in the 4th. Yeah, they were in the college football playoff consideration. They could realistically fight and end up in the playoff. I think they'd take that 9 times out of 10, with the exception of the one crazy drunk fan who doesn't know football quite yet. But Missouri going forward, this speaks a lot for Eli Drinkwitz because the number of people calling for his job or saying that he wasn't the guy who should be coaching Missouri. Missouri had some hard years to say the least. And I think they've really grinded hard to get here. The amount of recruiting Eli Drinkwitz has done and really just plugging in the right personnel and relying on your playmakers has really gotten this team far, and they'll continue to get far. And I think this will help a ton the recruiting aspect. And Missouri is just one of the teams that maybe they'll just compete for the East now consistently. And we haven't seen that from him, but it's starting to look that way. Brady Cook, I know he had a tough game, but he's been having a lights out season. And of course, Luther Burden, not much more you ask from the 2 of them and the rest of the team. But Missouri, they just got to keep playing the games in front of them, and good things will come.
Yeah, we always say that with new head coaches is just be patient. Missouri is patient with Eli Drinkwitz, and they're on a good track this season to get to a good bowl game at the least.
You know, I will say that, Alex, but I think that a situation is coming up that we might have to say we gave this guy time and maybe it's time for him to go.
Yeah, but I mean, if he follows up the season with another good season, then hey, let's keep.
Well, for Eli Drinkwitz standards, at least.
I mean, like you said, Nathan, he's recruiting well. Luther Burden, he brought him in. I believe he's got the number 1 recruit next year or the year after that.
The edge, I believe.
Yeah, so he's recruiting well, and he gave up play calling duties to the Kellen Moore's brother. I forget his first name. I don't know, but he's gave up that. I think he's just continually learning and continually improving this team as well. All right, number 5, Washington. Number 20, USC. Washington wins the game 52-42. Not a lot of defense played here. And it just feels like every week USC's defense figures out a different way to cost Caleb Williams and that offense the game. This time, running back for Washington, Dylan Johnson, 26 carries, 256 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns. That's a career high for Dylan Johnson, of course. What happened against USC's defense? Michael Penix Jr., wasn't some Heisman performance here. He did have a Heisman moment, though, evading all those USC pass rushers and throwing that dot. He was 22 of 30, 256 yards, and 2 touchdowns, an interception, and had a rushing touchdown. Romeo Dunze, 82 receiving yards, and then Jalen Polk and Devin Culp both had receiving touchdowns. The defense for Washington wasn't great. They had 3 sacks, 3 TFLs, and that fumble recovery by Braylon Trice, but the defense wasn't great. You have 42 points to USC. But the reason they won this game is USC's defense. Lord have mercy. Awful. If you want to watch how to not play defense in college football, just go turn on the USC film for the entire year. And gladly for USC now, defensive coordinator Alex Grinch was fired this week. So no more dealing with that. Lincoln Riley can't scapegoat him anymore if they continue to lose games. But I think this was probably too little too late to be getting rid of Grinch here. The season's basically over. I'm not sure if Caleb Williams will continue to play football games at this point, with him basically being out of any contention for a New York Six Bowl or anything like that. I wouldn't be surprised if he just sits out the rest of the year. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe look at Caleb Williams' stat line, 27 to 35, 312 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, added a rushing touchdown. The running game for USC was okay. Austin Jones had 127 yards. And then the leading receiver for them was Tosh Washington with 122 yards and a touchdown. And like I said, the defense, awful. They have given up 49 points in back-to-back games, and teams have scored at least 32 points in 9 of the last 10 games. Lord, I don't know how Alex Grinch was even employed going into the season, much less got to this point. Nathan, is Washington fraudulent here with their defense and how it's performed these past couple of weeks, even though they did beat Oregon earlier in the year? And then looking at USC, what do they do from here? Because they don't have defense coordinator now. Caleb Williams is kind of halfway in, halfway out, similar to Lincoln Riley. What does USC do here going into the Big Ten next year?
I'll start with Washington. Fraudulent is a word thrown out. It's thrown around a lot in today's college football to talk about a number of teams. But the way Washington plays, I don't think it's necessarily fraudulent. It's a week-to-week battle. And sometimes you're going to have to rely more on one part of your team than the other. And there have been games where Washington has relied on their defense. You go back to the Arizona State game. That pick six that really sealed the game for Washington. And then they come out in this game and they rely heavily on their offense. Dylan Johnson, gosh, man, what a stat line. And then Michael Penix just taking care of business. And that's all you can really ask for a very competitive Washington team. It's not fair to not give them credit for the ones they have, because they have played the people that are ahead of them on their schedule, and they continue to take care of business, albeit sometimes in a close game. But that's just how it's been this season. It's not just Washington. You can go and pick up really any top team in the country, and there has been some point where they have struggled against a lesser opponent, but they came out with the win. And to say that Washington is fraudulent, no, they're not. Could they slip up somewhere? Yeah. It's possible with any team, any given Saturday. Josh Pate likes to say that all the time. It's true. Any team that could come out to any given Saturday, it doesn't matter what team it is, they can come and lose. But Washington continues to win, and they have a great system there. They have really high hopes. If they win out, then they're going to be in the playoff, or at least they should be. And Washington going back since the first time since they played Alabama, I forget what year. But that'd be a huge accomplishment for the program just to get back there. And then moving on to USC. Lord, just the ultimate waste of Caleb Williams. It's almost like the Bears franchise went ahead and just took over USC and said, we're going to get a practice run here so we don't mess it up when we actually get him. Because defense, non-existent. Alex Grinch, I'm glad he's gone. Way too late. Lincoln Riley should have made that decision so much early in the season. I remember early on in the season, I had watched a recap of UC's opener against I think it was San Diego State, and the guy talked about not to worry about their defense, that they just weren't playing a lot of personnel, that they were just trying to get people a lot of playing time. I was like, okay, maybe I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And then they come out and they do this. So I was trying to figure out what his excuse would be now that they just consistently let people score 49 points on them. Absurd. Absolutely absurd. And
California, one of them.
Yeah. It just you can take a look at what Oregon did to Cal, for reference of what USC was battling against. I mean, that is awful. And it's not like a talent either. It was just coaching. And I will say that I think there is a little bit of a urgency issue, maybe a lack of competitiveness on that defense. And I think that's just from having to play under Alex Grinch. I'm not going to put that on the players because Alex Grinch has just been absolutely horrendous, and he deserves to be fired. He is not doing his job. He should not be paid to coach a defense ever again. I mean, anytime he applies somewhere else, I want them to just show the entire USC defense film from this season, and tell him to go ahead and pack it up because he should not be allowed to coach defense ever again. It's been a tough season for USC fans, to say the least. Last season, the Caleb Williams, and you're at this point of the season. Alex, come on. If he comes back, then we'll have a whole nother scandal on our hands, I think. But it's definitely a waste of generational talent. And now you really question, what is Lincoln Riley going to do from here? What is next season going to look like? They're moving over to the Big Ten. It's going to be way more competitive than it is now in the Pac-12. And it's, waste of a talent like Caleb Williams. That just leaves a bitter taste in my mouth.
Definitely a bad taste in everybody's mouth watching Caleb Williams continue to lose games because his defense can't get a single stop. Some upsets from the past week. You had Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma 27-24 with the last Bedlam rivalry game before Oklahoma leaves for the SEC. Tale for Oklahoma, like last week against Kansas, is the turnovers. Had 3 from this game, had 3 from last week. So Oklahoma loses back-to-back games, squarely out of the playoff picture now, regardless of how their win against Texas looks. There's going to be no consideration for them to get in there. Clemson gets a win. They beat number 15 Notre Dame 31-23. After Tyler from Spartanburg calling it to Dabo Sweeney's radio show, berated him. Dabo berated the caller back, and Dabo came out here and answered the call. Running back Phil Maffa had a career high 36 carries for 186 yards and 2 touchdowns, with starting running back Will Shipley being out. So Clemson answers the bell and gets that win against the Notre Dame team, which is kind of reeling now. Sam Hartman didn't look good at all. Had 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. So good thing for Dabo there getting a win, and a much needed win at that. Army beats Air Force 23-3. Air Force probably out of the top 25 now, as they were sitting at 25 before this game. They were undefeated, no longer anymore. It's really disappointing for Air Force. They were pretty much America's team. Everybody was rooting for them. Arizona beats number 19 UCLA 27-10, and the Wildcats are both eligible for the first time since 2017. And I think I mentioned this a couple of shows ago. All 3 of Arizona's losses are within 1 score, and they easily could have won those games. And so I think Arizona trending in the right direction under Jed Fish, and I think they have a bright future ahead of them, especially with the freshman quarterback Noah Fifita playing the football he's been playing right now. And the last upset, if you want to consider an upset, Florida loses to Arkansas 39-36 in overtime, and they fall to 5-4 on the season. Florida does. I don't know what's going on with Florida, man. It feels like every year we get to this halfway point where we're like, man, Billy Napier's really got it figured out. This program's in the right direction. And then they just fall off a cliff. And it's like, well, what happened here? This was good. This was okay. And then, we forgot how to play football. The defense gives up 39 points to an Arkansas team that has a new offensive coordinator, an interim at that one, because Dan Enos decided he wanted to be a bozo and email people him and all that, calling him out and all that stuff, and got fired. I don't know what Florida does from here. Arkansas gets a good win for them, for Sam Pittman. Maybe he keeps his job, maybe not. We'll see. But both these coaches, regardless if they make it into next season or not, are going to be on the hot seat.
Billy Napier keeps his job. I don't know. What year is this for him?
This is year 2. This is year 2.
Yeah. So I don't know how much more time you can give him. I know it's early. It's really been 1.5 seasons, but this is the product he consistently puts out there. I don't want to see any more of it. I'm sure Florida fans are already tired of it. This was a game where you should just handle business against Arkansas. Arkansas has had a terrible year. They've gotten beaten around in the SEC and really having to fire their offensive coordinator and Danny Enos. Nothing's going right for this Arkansas team, and they just go down to the swamp and beat Florida in overtime. Who was expecting that? I'm sure every single fan there, every single Florida fan there, just wants a refund. I'd be going for a refund. Can I have some of the refund from Billy Napier's salary? Because obviously he doesn't need it.
Some other storylines from the past week. Number 7, Texas snuck out with a 33-30 win in overtime versus Kansas State. After the Wildcats' attempt on 4th and goal fell short. It was one of the worst play calls I've ever seen. The quarterback was like stumbling backwards, and even the route that we was going to throw to wasn't even open.
Should have kicked the field goal.
I like the aggressiveness of going for it there, but the play call has got to be better. It really does have to be a lot better than that. And if Texas would have lost, that'd be a good thing for Alabama because they could have snuck past Texas in these new rankings coming out.
We'll see. It doesn't really matter till the college football playoff updates their rankings, but we'll move on.
Number 10, Ole Miss blocked Texas A&M kicker Randy Bond's field goal attempt as time expired to seal the win for them and keep the Rebels playoff or SEC championship hopes alive, even though they're kind of dashed right now. Alabama beating LSU. If Alabama slips up against Auburn or Kentucky, then the Rebels have a chance here. Number 1, Ohio State scored 14 unanswered points to pull away from Rutgers and win 35-16. Wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. was held to 4 receptions for 25 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nathan, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter this past weekend or whatever, but the ESPN does their little poll thing of Heisman candidates at this point in the season. Mm-hmm. And Marvin Harrison Jr. had been leading the race.
It's kind of amazing to me, seeing that he hasn't had. I know this game hasn't been impressive, but he has had games where he's consistently put up 100 yards and a touchdown. But he's also had a lot of lackluster games too. And for a wide receiver to win the Heisman Trophy, last guy to do it was Devontae Smith. He had an absurd year. In order to beat out quarterbacks, has Marvin Harrison Jr. had that type of season? In my opinion, he's not even close. So it's baffling. Honestly, Alex, who would be your Heisman pick at this moment in time?
I would love to say Jane Daniels, but his team has 3 losses. I really would love to say Jane Daniels, but I can't. I mean, at this point, I have to say Michael Penix Jr. Washington is undefeated. He's been playing really good football. I know the last couple of weeks haven't been great, but he's been it's either him or Bo Nix.
I would go Bo Nix.
This is the craziest thing.
The offense, Oregon's offense has been off the charts. You got to give Bo Nix credit. I tell you, that would be the funniest thing to happen. He goes has a terrible career at Auburn, transfers, goes to Oregon, wins the Heisman Trophy. The running joke's always been that he's the dark horse for the Heisman, could win it this year. I think he should win it at this point in time, but there's still a few weeks of football left to be played, so I guess anything can happen.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on what the Pac-12 championship looks like and who wins that and how these players finish out the season. There's, like you said, Nathan, there's a lot of football left. I think that question will kind of answer itself as we close out the season. NC State defeats Miami 20-6. Miami is just kind of like Florida here. Just start out the season really good, and then it's on this downhill slope. Tyler Van Dyke, who Miami's reportedly paid to stay there with NIL money and all that for coming to Alabama. No touchdowns, 3 interceptions and a fumble lost. Kind of like the team itself, Tyler Van Dyke continues to just trail down and just disappear. I don't know. Miami, Florida, the only good team down there in the state of Florida right now seems to be Florida State, which is crazy to say considering what that program was like after Jimbo Fisher left. The last thing, Colorado lost to number 16 Oregon State, 26-19, and falls to 4-5 on the season. Colorado finished with -7 rushing yards. And that came after earlier this week, Deion Sanders stripped offensive coordinator Sean Lewis of play calling duties and then promoted Pat Shurmur to the offensive coordinator position. That was a I don't know what Deion Sanders was thinking there. Because look at the Buffalo's offense, they're averaging 32.1 points per game, had scored 40 plus in 4 games. And 2 of their losses that came where they had scored 40 points in a game. The play calling wasn't the problem. It's the offensive line can't block for Shadur or the running game. And the defense might as well just be USC 2.0 with the way they're just letting people march up and down the field on them. Nathan, Deion Sanders 4-5 in his first season. I believe the coach before him, I forget his name, was 5-4 at this point. And I know the Pac-12 is at a different place than it was even last year. But has this been a disappointing year for Deion Sanders thus far?
No, he's taken over a program that finished with 1 win last season. So automatically you kind of get bonus points for exceeding that amount. And I don't agree with a lot of things that he's done. Deion Sanders has made some idiotic decisions. This probably being top of the list now, demoting a guy in Sean Lewis. Sean Lewis has been one of the greatest play callers this season. Really putting Colorado in situations to win big games. And I always think back to the TCU game. That's a game that really Colorado just imposed their will on the offensive end, and that's because Sean Lewis put him in a position to win. I think that it comes down to play calling. But I don't know what Deion has against him because this was not the answer. Demoting a great offensive coordinator and bringing the guy in who, frankly, should not be in that position. You should expect to put up 19 points or less. That's on Deion. Not putting his team in the situation to win. Honestly, with his son at quarterback, I feel like everyone else has been kind of the whipping boy because of it. Because whenever Shadur does bad, it's like, all right, so who's going to be the scapegoat this time? It turns out it's Sean Lewis this time, and the offense suffers more. The whole team as a whole suffers. And whenever Deion stops playing this favoritism crap or popularity crap, and stops trying to promote a brand and starts proving it on the field, I think this Colorado team will be way better off. But as of right now, where this team started, it has been on the downhill spiral ever since. Gosh, I would have said Stanford game. That game really just sticks out like a sore thumb. But you got to give Deion a little bit of credit because of the win total this season. But another season like this next year, that will not fly. Decisions like this next year, they're gonna start raising eyebrows. People are gonna start whispering to each other, and there's gonna be speculation. And with the coach that Deion is, we might have that. I don't know. What did you think about this whole situation, Alex?
I think Deion Sanders is a bozo for doing it. Sean Lewis quit being a head coach at Kent State to come here, be your play caller. And it wasn't like he was awful or anything. He was making good play calls. Like I said, his offensive line can't block worth crap. Might as well be the Make-A-Wish Foundation out there putting out the offensive lineman for him because they can't do anything. Deion Sanders even called the offensive line a couple weeks ago saying he's going to go to the portal and get people that can actually play offensive line and block for Shadur. And, that's great. But you can't blame your offensive coordinator and go, okay, let me fire this or demote this guy that has been excellent at the play calling duties all season. But, we're going to keep this guy in Charles Kelly at defensive coordinator, who might as well be an Alex Grinch disciple, the way his defense has been playing. It's just like a double standard here. Is we're gonna give Charles Kelly the benefit of the doubt, but we're gonna give Sean Lewis the scapegoat treatment, even though the offense is the reason they're even in these games to begin with. I mean, you talk about all these games. The only reason they even have a chance against these teams is because their offense puts up 40 points. Like I mentioned, they had 2 games where they lost, where they scored 40 points. So I don't think that decision was right, not only for Deion Sanders, but for that program as a whole. I mean, it just felt like we both mentioned, a scapegoat play by Deion. And if this offense continues to struggle, I wouldn't be surprised if Sean Lewis is promoted again. And if I'm Sean Lewis, I'm sitting here thinking, what am I even doing here next year? If this guy doesn't want me, doesn't believe in me, doesn't give me the benefit of the doubt, and doesn't believe in my offense here when I'm scoring 40-plus points, then I just need to pack my bags and go somewhere else where I'm appreciated. And I think this is kind of similar to the Bill O'Brien treatment that Alabama fans gave to him And people were saying, oh my God, this guy's horrible, but his offense is scoring 40-plus points and all that. Well, Nick Saban didn't go out and demote him mid-season and say, you know what, screw you, Bill O'Brien, you're demoted. We're going to promote Jim Bob Fisher over here or whatever. We're going to do that. No, he stuck with Bill O'Brien through thick and thin, and he finished out his contract with Alabama and moved on. Deion Sanders, I don't know what he's doing.
It's embarrassing, frankly. I mean, if I'm Sean Lewis, I'm embarrassed. And Deion doesn't care. That's a man's livelihood right there, and you don't believe in him, even though he's consistently put out a great product for you. John Lewis should go find another job. I'm sorry, because if my head coach, if my coworker is disrespecting me like that, I'm not gonna continue to work there.
Yeah.
Let Colorado suffer without you, because that is exactly what they're doing at this point in time. And if Sean Lewis ends up leaving this offseason, people are going to look at Deion Sanders and like, you are an absolute idiot for what you are doing.
Yeah. I think any program will take Sean Lewis, an offensive coordinator, an analyst. I mean, they'll take him as anything.
Some spot for him. You could plug him in wherever.
He's a great mind. I don't know what Deion's thinking. And like I said, we're going to demote this guy. We're going to let Charles Kelly have a job. And I'm not going to be the person to sit here and say these guys should be losing their jobs or anything like that. But when you're demoting somebody whose offense is playing really well and then keeping somebody whose defense is playing like crap, what's Deion? Is this like favoritism here? Is what it appears like it is. Be. I don't know. If I'm Sean Lewis, like you said, Nathan, I'm out the door. I don't care. I'm out the door finding me another job. All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening and watching, students of the game.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.